Hi, welcome to my podcast entitled The Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. During the last 23 years, which are about to end, going into 24, as a professional educator, I have been fortunate enough to get to know and work with some amazing leaders from all across the United States. The vision of this show is to share these podcasts with you so that we can learn from people who are leading others every day. Our initial focus has been and will be for a while longer on educational leaders, and then we'll look to expand to other horizons down the road. When you hear something that you like, please do me a favor, click like, drop us a comment, click like via YouTube, and most important, click that subscribe button. I've been absolutely amazed and pleased with the responses we've received thus far, and I'm looking forward to greater things to come. Tonight is episode 13 of the Wright Experience. My guest is in his second year serving as superintendent in one of my neighboring districts. I met him when he was appointed as superintendent. He is a very knowledgeable and thoughtful leader who displays integrity in his work, leading his home district, and that indeed is a unique challenge. I enjoy engaging in healthy competition with him, which ultimately makes both of our districts better. My guest tonight is Dr. Otis Smallwood. Dr. Otis L. Smallwood currently serves as superintendent of Bertie County Schools. He has a unique pleasure, as I stated, of serving the district in which he is a product of as a 1989 graduate of Bertie High School. He began his tenure as Bertie County Schools superintendent in 2019. Prior to that, he served as an assistant superintendent of human resources and accountability in Jones County, North Carolina, for 11 years. He began his career teaching mathematics in northeastern North Carolina schools and now has returned in a top leadership role. Dr. Smallwood holds a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics education from Elizabeth City State University. He holds a Master of School Administration degree from East Carolina University, and he received his doctorate in education from Nova Southeastern University in 2015. Dr. Smallwood is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, a point he reminds me of quite often. And I'll slide to the side. Never mind. Anyway, at this time, it is my pleasure to present to you my colleague, Dr. Otis Smallwood. I had to slide to the side for you so you could see what was behind me. Welcome to the Wright Experience.
I noticed that, Dr. Wright. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you aboard, and we're about to wrap up another school year, so I know everything's going well on your side of the line, and we're trying to wrap up things over here as well. For sure. Right. So we'll jump right into the questions, Dr. Smallwood. The very first one, now that you've been back home for, is it almost 2 years, or have you made the 2-year mark yet?
Yes, I'm finishing up. This school year will make my finishing my 2 years as superintendent.
Okay. So talk to us about the wonderful things that have been accomplished since you've been back in Bertie County in your district.
Okay, so one of the first things that we were able to do when I arrived in July of 2019, well, we knew Bertie teachers and staff, they didn't receive a local supplement. Mm-hmm. They used to have one several years ago, but due to a number of things, that was eliminated. So, and we were only one of 3 counties in the state, I believe, that no one got anything, teachers or administrators. So I think my second week on the job, I went to the county commissioners and asked them, could they give us extra funding for supplements so that we can go back to paying supplements like the district was doing some years ago. So they graciously did. They gave us some, and then we took some out of our fund balance too, to be able to pay all of our licensed employees 3% and our classified employees 1%. So that was the first accomplishment, the low-hanging fruit that I grabbed when I got back home. And so since then, we went back to the county, and they have been trying to put on the ballot local sales tax that would fund additional funds that they were suggesting that we could use for supplements. So Sure enough, they put it on the ballot, and this was the first time that it ever passed in Bertie, so that it could permanently give that funding stream for the district to use for a supplement. So we were very pleased and glad that we were able to do that. Also, one of the charges when the board hired me, they wanted to increase our career and technical education offerings for kids. So we created a cosmetology program that is up and running now. We converted one of our buildings on the central office campus to a state-of-the-art cosmetology lab. We partnered with Martin Community College for that. So again, this is a program that was there years ago. We had cosmetology when I was a student. So we were able to get that done. Like I said, we remodeled the building, state-of-the-art. So it's a partnership with CTE and Martin Community for kids at our high schools. The early college kids and the traditional high school kids can take that class, and they will get college credit, working towards their cosmetology license. And I believe it's next year when we're going to open it up to the public, so that they may come on campus and take cosmetology as well, at our local campus as well. In addition to those, we are very proud to be able to restore some things that we can focus on the whole child, so they can utilize some of their talents, because we know sometimes their gifts and talents can help them with the academic end too. So some things that had been taken away over time were like choral music, and so we added that back to the high school curriculum. We're now adding theater arts. We have a high school that's pretty much brand new that has a state-of-the-art auditorium. So we're adding theater arts and drama back to the curriculum. We're looking at trying to add dance to the elementary and middle schools for next year. We've added foreign language back to the elementary and middle school curriculums. We're boosting our AIG programs for the district. Our traditional high school, their college, they weren't taking full advantage of CCP. So we have more of the traditional kids at Bertie High enrolled in college level courses through CCP. And right now we have about 8 or 10 kids on track that could possibly earn their associates with the class of 2022 from the traditional high school. And of course, we have the early college. Also, even through the midst of all this pandemic, the board and I, we were able, and of course, all of my committees that I have formed as well, we were able to create a strategic plan that would guide us on our work for continuous improvement for the next 4 years. So we were very glad that we were able to get that done as well in the midst of the pandemic. So those are the few of the things that we have going on. I try to listen to my kids when I get there, and I go around and talk to kids and have little committees, and they tell me what they want or what they think they want anyway, back into their curriculum and their academic program. So that's what we've been trying to do to make sure that our kids just have access and opportunity and can be well prepared when they leave Bertie to go out and solve life's challenging problems. They'll be well prepared.
Sounds like you got a plethora of things going on for sure, and that's to be commended that you were able to come in and already in 2 years identify that many things that you're trying to move forward for your district. That's a testament to your outstanding leadership for sure. So what can you share with us that's been the most surprising thing since you've assumed the superintendency?
Well, just one, because it's been a lot of them.
You can share more than one if you like.
Well, so like you said, I'm back home, right? So I've never really left home all the way. I just worked in another area for 11 years. So I'm still connected to home. My mom and my siblings are home, and so I'm kept in the know a lot. But one thing that really surprised me is how much this role is center stage. Sometimes when I'm home, it's like I'm a celebrity. And I don't like celebrity status. I've always been the person, to kind of work in the background and making sure the people out ahead of me look well. And I knew this role was the leading role in the district, but it's just like eyes are on me all the time. Pre-pandemic, going to the local food line was, it was a challenge to go in and come out, But so you're just always on stage, like people are following you on social media. They'll message you on instant messenger, they sending me messages through Twitter, tweeting. It's just like your eyes are always on you. So I have to be very careful of how I act. I know I got impressionable minds looking at me, I got family looking at me, I'm connected to a whole lot of different people in the community. So that's been the one surprising thing of how much attention that this job brings, and you're kind of always on duty, even when you're not on duty. This is how surprising it is, Dr. Wright. When I first moved back home, I didn't move back home with my mama. That wasn't quite doable. I mean, me and my mom, we tight, but I couldn't quite deal with that. But so, housing is a challenge here in Bertie, in this whole region. But I found this house that a former teacher of mine rented to me. So, I'm like, okay, packing and unpacking. I get a message on Facebook Messenger saying, Dr. Smallwood, why you got all those lights on? I'm like, what? I mean, really, are you writing about looking? So it's just small things sometimes that amaze me about people. But, that's just been one of the surprises. It's just all eyes on me all the time. So I try to make sure I give them something positive to look at, though. I try to make sure my I's are dotted and T's crossed, and be a professional all the time.
The way that I describe that to up and coming leaders is when you're out, you're on. And what I mean by that is when you're out and about, eyes are on you, which is what you said. I mean, you just gotta be ready all the time, because there will be folks looking at you. The first time I remember, I was an assistant principal at the house cutting grass, needed to go to Walmart. This is in Nash County. And I got ready to jump in the car, had on some shorts. And my wife looks at me and says, you can't go do that. So you got to change. You're an assistant principal now. So it's kind of been like that ever since. So we do have to be careful about our image, because people are looking at us as leaders. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So Dr. Smallwood, as well as I do, and many of our listeners would know this too, we are having right now a trouble attracting and maintaining quality professionals in education. So what can we do to, as school districts, as a state, to make sure that we are attracting and retaining quality educators in our field?
Well, we do the normal things like try to make sure we have a supplement to offer. Pay is important, but sometimes in our areas, it's so much we can do. Like 3% will only go so far, and even with housing, like we're trying to work on trying to secure some quality housing to attract people to the area if they come. But it's like I presented to our economic development teams that teacher recruitment is tied to economic development too. So it takes everybody to work on teacher recruitment and retention. I mean, the entire community, because first of all, we want to make sure that the community is attractive to get the people that you want, right? So we hear about all the time, like every day in the paper, or we get text messages or whatever, about all these establishments coming to central North Carolina, right? Raleigh is getting an Apple plant or a FedEx plant, or Amazon is opening up something here, but it's never really east of 95 that we get those type of deals in our area. So it's going to take all hands on deck. Like you say, sometimes all hands in for learning, right? We're going to have to make sure that everybody's at the table to make sure that our community and our region has a strong infrastructure. Broadband is a challenge in this area. As we realize that with this pandemic, making sure we have the right infrastructure in place to attract businesses and industry to our area that will want to attract people to come to the area to make a living and to make a life, actually. So we won't have this revolving door. So I think that's a part of the problem, that we just can't. We don't have the critical infrastructure in place that would attract the people that we want to have teaching in our classroom. So, like, I know in Bertie we have to rely on a lot of international teachers.
Sure.
to come in and to try to fill the gap. And they do a very good job, but they're only here for about 5 years, and then they go back. It's kind of like an exchange program, but those are just some of the things we're trying to do. And then, but once we do get them, we need to keep them. So we need to make sure we develop them and support them, and nourish them to try to make, I try to make them feel that Bertie, you can't find anything better than Bertie. You can't go up on 13 to a Hosky and they're not going to do it for you. You can't go to Eden Chinchawan. They don't have what we have. So we.
I figured you were doing some of that. Okay.
Yeah, and I do it. I'm not going to tell you. I'm doing it. You do not need to go there with Dr. Wright. No, you don't need to do that. And then we need to do a better job sometime at telling our story.
That's right.
We need to rebrand sometimes and market ourselves better to just highlight the things that we're doing and that our kids are accomplishing. We just need to make it known and tell our story before other folks can tell it, because nobody can tell your story like you can. And then when people don't know your story, they'll make it up sometimes, and that's not always good for you.
That's right. So, Dr. Smallwood, in reviewing your resume and studying a little bit to prepare for this show, I learned that you were an outstanding math teacher. So certainly that's something to be commended for. Today's schools, of course, in math in particular, there seems to be a struggle for many students. Why do you think that is, and what needs to be done differently?
Well, I think our perceptions about math, we have a fear of math before it's even introduced to us a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And, but, I look at math too. I think sometimes our children, the children that I have worked with mostly, they have to be taught the skill, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes we think kids, there's nothing wrong with inquiry and figuring things out. That has its place too, but a lot of time our children don't have the foundational skill set to figure things out. So you have to intently and directly teach the skills to kind of ease the fear, because a lot of times, I started teaching kids in middle school and high school, but they have this fear of math that they just automatically think they can't do it. But math is a lot of repetition, it's a lot of patterns and a lot of sequences, and that's what we do in it. We are creatures of habit. We do the same things over and over. We are pattern people. We have trajectories that we follow, that we try to follow anyway. And then math, I try to remind people too that, because people always say, well, what am I going to use this math for? What I'm going to use this trig for? Right. Maybe the average person won't use trig every day, but the whole thing with that is about problem solving, right? So math teaches you how to think critically and to be problem solvers. And I don't care what discipline you're in, you're going to have to be problem solvers and to be able to think critically and to be able to logically put things together and sometimes logically take things apart, and that's what math does. But I think the biggest challenge is it's just kind of like this science of reading we're going to, which kind of goes back to how I was taught reading. We try to make associations with things and try to help kids figure it out, but right. Kids just need to be taught the skill. So I think that's what's missing a lot. Some classrooms I go in there, especially these elementary rooms, I'm looking at how they teach. To me, I'm like, well, I could have done that 10 minutes ago and been a whole lot quicker and done it. But I guess with this new math, but again, a lot of it, our kids are they don't have the foundational skills. So just take the time to work with them to make abstract things seem more concrete, mm-hmm. just so it can make a difference and they can see it. And once we do that, I think kids fear math and even fear for teachers, because some teachers are very fearful of teaching math as well.
Right. Yeah, I also have had conversations with people. I wonder where those tables went, those multiplication tables. Sometimes I think some of those old tried and true measures sometimes are still very valuable. I can see them almost in my sleep now if I think about them from from elementary school, where we had the tables and you had to memorize them and so forth.
Those
But I think that
flashcards.
created a good foundation, though, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that you spent, I love this question. Now that you spent some time in the seat, the one that has the red carpet in the room, I'm telling on you now. So now that you've spent some time in that seat for 2 years, what would be some advice you would give to a brand new superintendent or somebody that is aspiring and gung-ho about becoming a superintendent? What would be some advice that you would offer to them?
Well, first of all, I would say, I think people that get to this level in administration, I believe they're smart, academically speaking. I believe they're smart.
Mm-hmm.
But don't get on an ego trip, right? I think you need to be humble as a leader. I think the higher that you go in leadership, you have a tendency to make it be about you, selfish. I think that your chances of wanting some kind of power, I think those things increase, the likelihood of those increase. But I would just say, don't ego trip, remain humble, don't forget where you came from, and form relationships. There's nothing more important in leadership than relationships, because we can't do this work by ourselves. If you're missing one or two critical people in your circle, you can't do it all by yourself as a superintendent or any superintendent. So surround yourself with good people. See the good in others, respect others' ideas. I'm definitely a democratic style leader. I don't think authoritarians have any place in public education, because we're dealing with folks' it's precious cargo, their kids, and it takes a village to raise a child. So it's going to take everybody's ideas and beliefs about how to best educate children. And sometimes the leaders, we have to be vulnerable to realize and be able to admit what we don't know. But that's okay, because you're not here to know everything. And like I said, it takes a cadre of people. Then it's a scripture in Galatians that I like that talks about don't think highly of who you are. And like it basically says, you ain't all that. Like you ain't none of that for real. So don't think of yourself as being any better than anyone else because you've made it to the seat. I can go have a conversations with every custodian in the building. I can go step on a bus and hug the bus drivers, and then come to the superintendent's meeting and have conversations with. So that's what I would say. Relationships, keep your priorities in order. Form relationships with everybody in the organization, because it's somebody in that organization that can help make you or break you. Of course, have good relations with your school board. That's critical. And just, like I said, don't ego trip. You're really not that important. I do love that verse. I know God has a very good sense of humor.
Right.
Now you really not all that for real. So I try to keep that in perspective all the time, man. I try not to ever let this seat go to my head. And I pray that all the time that I don't become that type of person, because educators sometimes can be a little arrogant. And I guess I get that. But, again, that scripture just pops in my head. Yeah.
Right.
Boy, you ain't all that for real. Sit down somewhere. As my grandma would say, go sit down somewhere, boy. So
it's important to keep that in perspective too. That's exactly right. Because as you said, you're living kind of in that fishbowl, and yet we got to be humble about it. I think that's awesome. Awesome advice. I sure do. So you know that we learned during the pandemic, if we didn't know this before, that many districts like ours have what we're referring to now as a significant connectivity gap. Now, over here on this side, what that means is, right here in the town of Ahoskie, I'm pretty good, but I can get in my car and drive 5 miles north, south, east, or west, and my connectivity is gone. I can't get cell phone service or whatever. And part of that is when I drive through your county straight down 11. But so how do we work on that one? What do we need to do to make sure that we close the connectivity gap for students?
Well, like you said, Dr. Wright, that the broadband issue, we knew it was there, but the pandemic came and just exacerbated so many challenges that we face in this region every day. But again, that's one of those issues that we can't tackle alone. We have, so like, of course, all of our schools are high, we have the speed that we need there, and those lines are owned by, CenturyLink or whoever, and we get funding through a lot of that through our E-rate funds that take care of those bills through the federal government. But I think the federal government needs to bend to allow that same infrastructure to run to communities. I mean, in a lot of instances, the wires are there. They're somewhere in the area, but they're only for schools and libraries. So, I mean, to me, that's a barrier in itself that can be an easy fix. But of course, we have to rally and try to get into the right person's ear. And we really gonna have to talk to our legislators and to our representatives to try to make that a critical need in our area, to fund infrastructural needs, because counties like ours, Bertie and Hertford, we're never going to be able to do it on our own without some support from local county or the state government or federal government, whatever the case may be. But we're just going to have to rally behind things like that to help stakeholders see that's a critical need. And after this pandemic is over, I mean, the need for virtual learning is not going anywhere, especially in K-12. I think it's here to stay. And the only way we're going to try to tackle that challenge is to make sure that we do have the adequate broadband. But I think people are seeing the need, but our state, our General Assembly, that's just another area they're going to have to stop neglecting Eastern North Carolina and some other areas as well. I mean, I know it's not just solely for us, but we just lack so many critical infrastructure needs in this area, lack of access to many things, but they just going to have to just dedicating resources to this area to make sure we have the adequate infrastructure that we need.
Outstanding. Yeah, absolutely right. So moving forward, what do you see as our biggest, I'll say, challenges and/or opportunities for growth? Maybe your district, maybe us as a region. What do you see some of our biggest opportunities for growth being?
You mean as the schools or just the region?
Both schools and the region. Yeah.
Well, I think the schools are going to just be tied to the region itself. Like I said, economic development is going to be crucial in our area. We're going to have to do something to attract business and industry to the area where we can pay decent livable wages to families. And hopefully that will attract, more people, different kinds of people to our area. And they can bring their children with them, to want to be a part of our school district, or we can attract spouses, maybe different industries can bring something as spouses or educators. But, it's all tied to economic growth in our area. And like I said, that's everybody sitting at the table in our region to see what we can do to make this work. But then, of course, as educators, we're going to have to make sure that we do our very best to keep the best and brightest people in front of our babies every day, so that we, again, can prove to people that our babies, I like to say babies, but our students know that we're producing positive academic outcomes and social and emotional outcomes for our kids as well. That's the biggest challenge for us to grow. It's just bringing people who don't mind working with marginalized communities or kids at risk or kids in poverty. That those things bring unique challenges of itself, and everybody's not cut out to do that kind of work. But We just need to find ways to attract the people that are willing to put in the work, and not to leave, or constant turnover. As soon as they get here, they're out of here. So that's going to take, again, local officials, state officials, everybody that realize that our region and our kids are just as important or just as bright as the kids in other parts of the state. So it'll be worth their time to come in and spend some time with our kids and families.
Yeah, one of the largest misconceptions is I would put our children in our area, whether they be in Hertford, Bertie, academically up against any children in the state and in the nation. We've got some
Absolutely.
very, very, very sharp children in this area, but sometimes the playing field just isn't level. And you're
Right.
exactly right with that. Dr. Smallwood, I want to thank you. If you'll hold on with me for a few minutes, we'll be right back to close out the show.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So my next podcast, ladies and gentlemen, will be June 3rd at 7:00 p.m. My guest will be Dr. Barry Williams, who is Superintendent of Gates County Schools. It seems that the next few episodes will be for neighboring districts, or certainly districts in the Northeast. Dr. Williams will be on board next week, June 3rd, 7:00 p.m. Dr. Williams, Superintendent of Gates County Schools, is one of the longest tenured superintendents in one district in the state of North Carolina now. He's been in the district somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 years. I look forward to his experience of learning from his experiences as he comes to you. We look forward to having him next week. Dr. Smallwood, I want to thank you so much for your work here tonight and for being a part of the Wright experience and being my guest. I look forward to continuing to work with you to make us both better. And certainly look forward to having you back on the platform at a later date. Ladies and gentlemen, I do hope that this podcast continues to be of a good service to you, and I hope that it motivates us all to be better. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.